Good morning, everyone. And good morning to those of you tuning in on Zoom. I'm Rupert Ayton, and my pronouns are he and him, and I'm honored to be your celebrant today for this very special service, along with special guest Lucy Kesterson and our minister, Sonny McMillan. For those of you hearing me but not necessarily seeing me, I'm an old guy who thinks he's younger than he is. I'm about 5'5", which makes this podium a little bit high for me. And I really need a haircut, even though it's really thin on top and it's going gray. I'm wearing a blue shirt and blue pants. I've got glasses on. You know, I'm an immigrant to this country. At 4 years old, the first Indians I saw were wearing buckskins and dancing around a teepee. I think it was at a rodeo in Sonoma County, California, in about 1960. Indians were Indians, the Wild West. It was not until I was in my mid-50s that I formally met an indigenous person from Sonoma. By then, I understood I was a guest in Indian country. I knew to thank the local pomos and wintunes for their gracious hospitality and their stewardship of the land on which I stood. Today, I speak my gratitude anytime I address an audience, indigenous or not, in any State of the Union. Lakotas have a saying, Mitakuye Oyasin, that translates to all my relations. I take that to heart. I've been blessed to know many Native Hawaiians, Alaska Natives, and American Indians. They're my sisters and brothers. That includes Coast Salish people. Today, I thank them for their hospitality and the stewardship they carry in their blood for the land we live on. And I'm thankful for something else this morning. At 17, I was a white boy working in a car wash. I had my job because of the labor of the black men who came up from South Central every day to detail cars, and because of the humble migrants from Mexico who kept the car wash humming, vacuuming and washing windows and wiping off seats and dashes. And thus, I thank all those who over the centuries have labored in servitude for low wages to make possible what I enjoy today. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Sunny. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the minister here at Bellingham Unitarian Fellowship, or BUF. My visual descriptors: I am a middle-aged white woman with red hair, and I am wearing glasses and a tan sweater. A few weeks after I arrived at BUF in October, BUF member Lucy Kesterson reached out to make an appointment with me. She wanted to talk about the Unitarian Universalist Association's Congregational Study Action Issue for 2025 through 2028 on abolition, transformation, and faith formation. She hoped that as a congregation, BUF would take up this issue over the next 3 years for study, reflection, and ideally, some action. Our initial meeting turned into a series of meetings, and I came to know Lucy and her commitment to BUF's Black Lives Matter action team. I also came to know her personal story, which includes the story of how, on New Year's Eve, 11 years ago, Lucy lost her husband. It is a story that some around BUF are aware of, but it's not something that Lucy has shared publicly until now. It is a story of loss, yes, but it is also a story about the healing power of transformative, restorative justice. And that is one of the reasons Lucy has chosen to share for the first time here today, because based on her own experience, she believes that personal reconciliation and recognition of our shared humanity can transform both individual lives and systems. By way of background, a Congregational Study Action Issue, or CSAI, is part of the collective social witness process in our UU tradition. As the Unitarian Universalist Association, or UUA, describes it, the social witness process is how we, as UUs, come to understand and act on the social issues of our times, finally bearing witness through statements that are adopted as UUA policy by the delegates of a General Assembly. The process has been an integral part of our faith since the merger of the Unitarians and the Universalists in 1961. Importantly, the congregation process is congregationally driven, meaning issues are selected by UU congregations for 3 years of study, reflection, and action, providing congregations an opportunity to mobilize energy, ideas, resources around a common issue. And then in the 3rd year of the process, delegates at General Assembly can vote to approve a statement of conscience resulting from congregational feedback. For decades, UUs have made statements on everything from interfaith cooperation to civil liberties to creating peace to reproductive justice to immigration and to uncorrupted democracy, among many other topics. We now have an opportunity as a congregation to take up this latest congregational study action issue on abolition, transformation, and faith formation. After Lucy shares her story about why this particular issue is so important to her, I will close our service today with a few opportunities to learn more about this issue and get involved at Buff in the coming weeks and months. Our current carceral system has roots in slavery and is based in dehumanization, retributive justice, and violence. Lucy's story and this congregational study action issue on abolition invite us to consider another way, one based in restorative and transformative justice that recognizes the inherent worth and dignity of all people. I invite you to listen today and in the coming weeks with open minds and open hearts, so that we may collectively live into the liberatory theology of our Unitarian Universalist faith. I also want to provide a content warning on what you will hear today after we sing the children out to their classes. Not only will Rupert, our celebrant, be sharing about his own work with those convicted of capital crimes, but Lucy's story involves gun violence and details of her husband's death. If this is not content you want to hear, you may wish to step outside when Rupert and Lucy speak. And if you stay to hear these elements and you find yourself troubled, we will be providing spiritual care following the service. Barbara Gilday and I will remain in the sanctuary afterwards for anyone needing this support. And now Ian will bring us into worship with our prelude.
I'm Lucy Kesterson. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a middle-aged white woman with glasses and shoulder-length salt and pepper hair, which are currently in braided pigtails. I'm wearing a maroon shirt and a green and maroon scarf. Thank you to the 49 members and friends of Buff who collectively wrote heartfelt messages of hope and love to 200 Unitarian Universalists imprisoned. At an incarceration facility in Iowa, 28 UUs come together as the Newton UU Fellowship. Despite multiple barriers to religious freedom and expression, they are committed to our UU values. Our chalice lighting today is their welcome. We gather as one community with many beliefs, following many paths, all with unknown destinations. As one, we seek to be treated fairly. Justice is possible only with love for one another. The heart in your chest pulses with life, as does mine. Equity in our humanity is the design of nature. Each step we take on our journey allows us to explore who we are. Transformation stops only when we refuse to advance. As believers in a multitude of thought, we embrace the challenges of acceptance. Pluralism is celebrated through respect for individuality. Through recognition of the effects of our actions, we govern our words and deeds. Interdependence allows strength in numbers and caution towards selfishness. In the spirit of unity, we vow to give as much as we receive. Generosity is measured in thought, attention, gift, and assistance. Every soul who seeks our community will be given the opportunity to become the masterpiece that nature intended. With this vow, we open our hearts to the love of one another in this place. And now please join us in sharing our covenant. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service gives it life. Celebrating our diversity and joined by a quest for truth, we work for peace and honor all creation. This is our covenant. Please rise and body your spirit to sing hymn number 1023, Building Bridges, from the Teal Hymnal.
This is a round, and we're going to sing it through once all together, and then we have some helpers up here so that we can do the round. This side will begin, and then this side will come in second. So just follow your leaders up here. We'll sing it twice through as a round. Once through all together, and twice in a round.
Good morning. It's on. Good morning again. Ooh, I got a thumbs up. Do I have it now? We have power to be heard. I invite all the kiddos who would like to come up. I will read a story about Wally and Freya, because these friends, I'm getting feedback, visual. I can sit. So this is what community looks like. And we actually have a story about... Good morning again. So I'm Vanessa Lott, mom of Sahali and Arrow, and I like this description. I am a 40-something white soccer mom, and I've got green hexagonal glasses and real flowy, if it's windy, I feel like a jellyfish clothing that's green and gray and stripy. So I have a book called Wally and Freya, and this is a story about friends and how they decide to support and build their community. So Wally was a bully, and that's what everybody said. They were sure that hurtful thoughts were all that filled his head. Wally stole lunch every day from Bella Joe the bear. He always hogged the crayons and then refused to even share. Needless to say, when it was time for kids to play, Wally's classmates all would holler, "Wally, go away!" During recess, kids brought pens and imagination soared. They wrote of pirates, goblins, ghouls, dragons, knights, and lords. Freya the red fox wrote the most captivating tales of terrifying monsters with big teeth and as sharp as nails. One day, Freya's book of tales simply disappeared. It's lost and gone forever, or so the children feared. Raphael the rabbit spoke up fast to save the day. Wally took the book, he said. Quick, he went that way. Chasing after Wally, they were shocked by what they found. Pages of her book were scattered all across the ground. Freya's words were hidden under Wally's scary doodles of terrifying monsters eating eyes and guts like noodles. They all let out a gasp. "What have you done?" the group exclaimed. Wally ran into the forest, looking quite ashamed. But Freya thought twice as she watched young Wally go and followed down the grassy path to where the oak trees grow. Wally was there, hanging his head and kicking the dirt. Freya saw in Wally's eyes that both of them felt hurt. "Your drawings are amazing," Freya genuinely said. This made Wally smile, and he slowly turned his head. "Why'd you take my book?" she asked with kindness in her eyes. "I don't know," said Wally, letting out a big, long sigh. "I guess I just wanted to be part of the fun, but you wouldn't understand. You're friends with everyone." "Nobody likes me," Wally said, looking very sad. "Sometimes I get so sad, and then that sadness makes me mad." He told his new friend Freya about the troubles in his home and told her how he felt so scared and completely alone. Freya sat and listened, and she let Wally talk on, and by the end of Wally's story, her anger was gone. "I have a fun idea," she said, with kindness in her smile, and together they gathered her book's pages in a pile. The next day, the kids gathered by the biggest old oak tree. What they found when they arrived was quite the sight to see. Wally's illustrations were all pinned up on the bark, scary drawings of mean monsters and terrible sharks. Freya told a story. It made them come alive. The monsters were embarking on a dangerous deep-sea dive. When her epic story ended, everybody cheered. They saw Wally was an artist and not to be feared. From that day on, Wally was a member of the crew. The others wrote the stories, and as for Wally, he drew. You see, Freya did something quite special on that fateful day. Instead of striking back, she made sure Wally was okay. There is always much more to people than we can see. Beautiful things happen when we practice empathy. So now, with those lovely thoughts of community and friends, we'll sing the kiddos upstairs. And the words are in our order of service.
So, the topic of today's service may be difficult to get our heads around. At least it is for me. It's about the victims and perpetrators of capital crimes. I've been neither, nor has anyone very close to me. Let me stop here and define capital crime. It's a criminal offense punishable by death. Why don't I just say murder? I suppose because there's so much mystery and misunderstanding in what we may generalize as crime and punishment. Today, Lucy's going to share her personal story. It's a story of tremendous courage about something I, and probably most of you, can't fully imagine. As some of you know, I've been involved with individuals who are, or have been, incarcerated for serious crimes, capital crimes. When I first met Lucy, I had just discovered that the mild-mannered man I had been on a Zoom call with was responsible for a series of heinous crimes. I was shocked. I sought counseling from Lucy. Her words were simple. Don't judge, but use judgment. Don't judge, but use judgment. How do we do that about something so intense as murder? For me, it starts with asking myself questions, including questioning what I think is this social norm. The murderer is evil. The victim and the victim's loved ones, tragic. And we console the victim's loved ones with the retribution of the murderer's execution or life imprisonment. Retribution. What does that really mean? The dictionary says deserved and severe punishment. But who decides what's deserved and what's severe? What's the scale? Let me dig a little deeper here. Until recently, crime and punishment was something I took for granted, something I'd been fed by politicians who run on law and order tickets. We come to expect the district attorney to promise retribution for the crime being prosecuted. It's supposed to give us some sense of security, some sense of justice. What is justice? A shrewd attorney will tell you it's what 12 people decide, and no 12 people may decide the same thing. And in some cases, it may not be the deserved and severe punishment some hope for, or exoneration others hope for. It seems to me that some murder cases aren't as neat as perhaps the general public would like. The cases don't stop when the trial judge pronounces sentence. The crime lives on, not only destroying the life of the murderer, should he or she avoid the death penalty, but two, the lives of the victim's loved ones. Now, we Unitarian Universalists believe in social justice. I think most of us would consider supporting criminal justice reform. I do, although I wonder how I would feel about a crime perpetrated on me. And perhaps we question the orthodox thinking that the purpose of incarceration is retribution, deterrence, incapacitation, and rehabilitation. To me, deterrence is a falsehood. I've read too many admissions by murderers that they killed without ever thinking about the consequences. Incapacitation makes sense, as there's evidence that murderers age out of murder. Keep them off the streets until they are no longer dangerous. That leaves retribution on the one hand and rehabilitation on the other. This is where it gets messy. Who gets to decide a fair penalty? An eye for an eye dates back to the Code of Hammurabi. It was meant to put a fair cap on punishment. Again, who decides the fair cap? And what role does rehabilitation have in that? Rehabilitation means restoring to normal life. Does this mean the life of the murderer or the lives of the victim's loved ones, or both? When I find myself corresponding with a murderer serving or who has served time, and trust me, doing so still blows my mind, that person's rehabilitation is available for my scrutiny, there for me to exercise judgment over. I have lots of points of reference. Rehabilitation usually starts with an admission or an apology. How an individual speaks about their crime may be insightful, and it is uncomfortable. Rehabilitation is demonstration of accomplishments while incarcerated, such as classes taken, degrees earned, leadership and service exercised, and accomplishments on the outside if their sentences have been commuted. The people I speak with are former gang members and drug dealers, and they voice a rejection of that life of crime, and a desire to serve community. Of course, I understand that their life will never be normal in the way I think of normal. I have no sense of the return to a normal life for the victim's loved ones. I watch the loved ones testifying at clemency hearings. I hear a plea for continued retribution, the wounds still open. What I'd like to hear is reconciliation, the wound healing. I think that's the path to as normal a life as perhaps possible. I'd like to know that for their sake, their lives have been restored. Loved ones don't deserve to suffer. But what do I know, since I'm on the outside, not the inside? Which brings us to Lucy and her brave story of restorative justice. Thank you.
When I asked Lucy what she might need from a meditative moment before she shares, she thought for a moment and said, "Relax my shoulders." So let's all take a moment together. Take a deep breath if you need to clean the slate. Exhaling fully. Find a comfortable, restful, even pace of breath from where you sit. And relax your shoulders. Allow them to sink away from your ears. Allow your eyes to be soft in their sockets. Allow your jaw to relax. Feel the weight of your body on the chair or the pew. Feeling the connection of your feet to the floor. always remembering that down through the floor, down through the foundation is the earth that holds us on our human journey. And taking one last deep breath in, exhaling as we welcome Lucy to share her story.
"11 years ago, in the wee hours of New Year's Day, my husband Alan was shot 3 times, once in the shoulder and twice in the face. As Alan lay bleeding to death on the cold ground, alone and in the dark, the stranger who shot him, we'll call him Jay, fled to his own consequences. But this is not their story. This is my story. The events of that night were the catalyst for my feelings of desperate imprisonment and ecstatic freedom, sometimes called a dark night of the soul. First, suddenly and violently, my sense of self and the world was destroyed. Then, I found what I thought was the path to its reformation from new learnings and perspectives. Finally, I embraced my transformed self through the spiritual sustenance of beloved community. In the case of murder, the victim's loved ones are the survivors of the crime. I am a murder survivor. As I tell my story, I acknowledge that I cannot and do not speak for all survivors. As Danielle Sarad writes in Until We Reckon, quote, "When the image of an innocent white woman, such as myself, is invoked as the prototypical victim, it not only supplants and displaces the lived experience of the vast majority of victims who do not belong to that demographic, it is also meant to conjure up a story about what justice looks like. Justice in which the victim is pure and innocent, in which the person who caused harm is heartless and monstrous, in which the protector is righteous and vengeful, in which the system as we know it contains them all in proper and rightful order." I emphasize again, this is my story, and though it shares many things in common with other survivors, it does not contain the multitude of complexities and intersectionalities of all survivors. Our criminal justice system is not kind to survivors. At no point in the process are our needs addressed or even considered beyond a cursory attempt to invoke sympathy, an attempt to sway the minds and hearts of judge, jury, and legislative committee. I have witnessed this indifference multiple times in the last 11 years. 3 days after Alan was killed, the detective investigating the murder finally called me. In the meantime, on that first morning, the killing was reported on social media as I was on my way to tell our eldest child. Thankfully, I had learned Alan was dead through Family First. That same morning, Jay turned himself in, claimed self-defense, and was immediately incarcerated in the overcrowded county jail. His community protested outside the courthouse. It was on the front page of the local newspaper. In the justice system, myself, Alan's wife, and next of kin, and our children were all an afterthought. I was assigned to the Victim Support Office, a prosecutor whose interviews are not confidential. As Jay had pled not guilty, there would be a trial. His bail was set at $1 million. The defense attorney hired a private investigator who interrogated me about Alan's character in a small, dark room while the prosecutor looked on in stony-faced silence. Afterward, the private investigator told me, and I quote, "You're a good adversary." He smiled as he said it. I replayed this moment in my head for years afterward, bewildered and fuming. Gratefully, a friend of mine made sure I was connected to Victim Support Services, or VSS. VSS is funded by victim restitution funds imposed at sentencing of those convicted of crime, such as murder. At the time, the funding for VSS in Northwest Washington allowed for one case manager for Snohomish County, one for Island and San Juan, and one for Skagit and Whatcom. My VSS case manager met with me and my friend on January 2nd. They provided support through every step of the process, and I could continue to call on them today if I needed it. Though, due to repeated funding cuts, VSS now has one case manager for all 5 Northwest counties. They helped me apply for financial assistance for an obituary, burial, and grief counseling, all reimbursed and not at the going rate. I could not find a grief counselor who would accept their pay scale. For me, the biggest help from VSS was during the trial and sentencing. Jay's trial for killing Alan was held 2.5 years after he killed him. After years with an open emotional and spiritual wound, I had thought the trial would give me closure. Instead, it gave me more trauma. Survivors are instructed not to show emotion during a trial. The idea is it could cause a mistrial by swaying the jury. So my family and I sat outwardly calm, no matter how we felt, during the entire 5-week process of trial and sentencing. I sat there suppressing my horror and sorrow. As the defense attorney provided free of charge from Stand Your Ground, tried to disparage Alan to sow doubt in the jury. As a quack firearms expert from Florida, flown in for $15,000 at the county's expense, invented his own physics for bullets. As a forensic scientist explained the details of the scene and what the gun and bullets revealed. As witnesses described the shooting in agonizing detail. As the coroner explained how Alan had died and the autopsy photos were shared on the screen. As Alan's bloody clothes were spread out in front of us. The prosecutor held the gift I had given him when we were engaged, and which Alan had still carried in his pocket, right in front of my face. I would never see that gift again. It is still held in evidence. Finally, I sat there, doing my best to keep my body still and my expression neutral, as Jay argued he only killed Alan because he had to. The jury returned a guilty verdict. My mother-in-law and Jay's father embraced in their grief. They had both lost a son. I turned away in righteous indignation of what felt to me like betrayal. During a sentencing hearing, survivors are allowed to give a victim impact statement, an opportunity to share how the crime has affected their lives and what they hope for sentencing. The victim impact statement is often the only time for a survivor's voice to be heard. Mine said, quote, "Just knowing he is out there in the world hurts my psyche so bad, it is like being back there on that day," end quote. Jay had spent the entirety of the last 2.5 years in the overcrowded jail and would, according to his sentence, spend the next 21 in a maximum security prison. I had spent those 2.5 years struggling to live. In the aftermath of Alan's death, I despaired. I felt alone. I considered suicide. In short, I was broken. As is, our criminal justice system only serves to cause more harm. Thankfully, there is another way to deal with community harms, one where those who harmed and those who are harmed could be restored to community and wholeness.
And now, while Ian plays I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free, I invite the ushers to come forward. Your financial support, large or small, is vitally important to sustaining Buff. It literally keeps the lights on and makes possible inspiring services such as today's. For those of you on Zoom, there will be instructions on your screen as to how to give. Thank you for your generosity.
The next phase of my path to wholeness was the reflection stage, a time of learning and discovery. Shortly after the trial and sentencing, I began my education in the Human Services program at my local college. There, I met folks who'd been to prison. My colleagues wanted to give back to the communities they had harmed. They hadn't come out of prison better people because they entered, because prison is a fantastic rehabilitation program. Their successes were against the odds, and only effective because they put in considerable effort to do the work. In prisons, this is a lonely process. You know the adage, do the crime, do the time? It implies that after a prescribed time of punishment, a person is returned to normal life. I witnessed that is not what happens. When a person is released to the outside world, our world, they receive $40 and a bus ticket. That's it. My colleagues completed their degrees while living in their cars, because not only is discrimination in housing legal, but so is discrimination in shelters. In my courses, I read Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson and The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, and watched 13 on Netflix about the 13th Amendment, which abolishes slavery except when punishable for a crime. And I became passionate about what I then called, or been thought of, as justice reform. After I finished my human services degree, I continued at Western, where I minored in law, diversity, and justice, and in Holocaust and genocide studies. I had to ask, how do regular people participate in genocide? The first stage is classification, the creation of an us versus them, a way of thinking that classifies those different from ourselves as less than human, an animal, a monster, a demon. When it came to Jay, us versus them took up most of my thoughts. I liked him being in prison. Did I think of him as less than human? I struggled to reconcile my thoughts and my feelings. Most of us are familiar with truth and reconciliation, the restorative process of truth-telling stemming from Ubuntu and promoted by Archbishop Desmond Tutu in the aftermath of South African apartheid. I had the privilege of learning the principles of Ubuntu in KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. Ubuntu means I am because we are, from the Zulu phrase meaning a person is a person through other persons. I am because we are, or us versus them. I was struck by the dichotomy and it weighed on my mind and my heart. So when I heard victim-offender dialogues existed, I jumped at the chance to learn about my pages are confused, sorry. Oh, no, they're even more confused. There you are. So when I heard about that victim offenders dialogues exist, I jumped at the chance to learn about them. Victim offender dialogues, or VOD, are facilitated conversations held within prisons initiated by survivors. As part of the process, the harming party must admit to their transgression and harm, or crime, if you prefer. All parts of the process are voluntary by all parties. In the most violent cases, such as extreme assault and murder, survivors who participate in the process overwhelmingly report feeling satisfied. Even if they didn't get what they wanted, such as an apology, they still felt closure. I immediately thought of Jay and tried to find a victim offender dialogue in Washington State, but I couldn't find one. Professionally, I worked in diversion programs run by the courts, which offer those charged with crimes to exchange due process rights for conditional freedom and needed vital services, such as medical and behavioral health treatment, housing, education, and work. Most diversion programs are underfunded, under-resourced, and racially biased. I admired many participants for their perseverance and determination. The system itself is inequitable. I was part of the problem. I understood by now that accountability looks a lot different to anything within our traditional system. In Until We Reckon, Danielle Sered says, quote, accountability is multidimensional. A person is not just accountable for something, but also to someone. That is different from punishment, which is one-dimensional. A person is punished for something, period. Nothing about the person to whom something is owed. In that sense, accountability is about relationship, and prison, based as it is on separation, is antithetical to relationship. End quote. Thinking about Ubuntu, I am because we are. I looked up victim-offender dialogues in Washington again. This time, I found a tiny blurb on the Department of Corrections website. I called, did a screening, and was sent an application. I ignored it for another 2 years. Something in me wasn't ready. By the time I arrived at Buff in June 2024, I was an ardent prison abolitionist. I looked up Buff's social justice ministries and learned the Black Lives Matter team was working for prison reform. I asked whom I should speak to and was referred to Rupert, our celebrant this morning. He told me of his work with those incarcerated for capital crimes and invited me to learn more. People tell me I dove right in here at Buff, but I had been craving a spiritual home for a very long time, and it wasn't just meaningful action. It was fellowship, the beginnings of authentic relationship. These relationships, my relationships with you, were essential to my ability to converse with Jay. Before coming to Buff, I thought of beloved community strictly in terms of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's dream, a future to build towards, instead of something to build now, and more broadly, as a Christian concept, rather than a universal one. At Buff, I learned relational awe is beloved community. Showing up is beloved community. Authentic, difficult conversations are beloved community. It is not a nebulous future concept, but an action for now. Beloved community is personal, not just conceptual, and that's what moved me and gave me strength. By August, 2 months after I arrived at Buff, and 4 years after I first learned a bit, I applied for the Victim Offender Dialogue. I gave my reason for wanting to talk to Jay as to recognize and acknowledge his humanity. I didn't want to think of him as them. By the end of September, Jay had accepted my request, and the Department of Corrections had approved it. By accepting the Victim Offender Dialogue, Jay had agreed for the first time that he was guilty of murdering Alan. When I talked about my upcoming dialogue with Jay, with fellows here at Buff, the response was always positive. Let me know if you need anything. It's a great thing you're doing. You have a lot of courage. In our services, topics were themed around values, justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, inclusiveness, generosity with love at the center. And every time we circled round, I thought about the many meanings of imprisoned. Jay and I were assigned 2 incredible, experienced volunteer facilitators. Both of them met with us individually once a month from October until May. They asked me, "What are you most afraid of in this dialogue process?" I replied, "I'm afraid of forgiving him. I feel like I could do that, and it would feel like a betrayal." Going through the process, even once a month, I was letting so much go and finding more and more about what I needed to say in the dialogue and what I wanted out of it. By the final session, I realized I had already forgiven him before ever talking to him. Though the facilitation meetings and the dialogue itself are confidential to allow for space to be truthful without fear, I could talk to our minister, Paul. Talking with him helped to keep me calm and grounded. I love the deep discussions of my chalice circle, the respect for different lived experiences, and the openness to different interpretations. They gave me a great example of authentic, empathic conversation. The Victim Offender Dialogue Program is poorly funded and does not provide any travel assistance for survivors. As the day of the dialogue got closer, I worried if I would be able to make it across the state to the penitentiary in Walla Walla. Through friendly encouragement, I applied for assistance through Humanitas. I received a gas voucher to help with the long trip and a 2-night hotel stay, so I didn't have to travel on the day. It made a world of difference not to have the logistical stress. I knew I wasn't doing it alone. And last but not least was Teze, the meditative candlelit service we have the first Monday of each month at 7 p.m. That's tomorrow. Teze is immersive. It is healing. It is challenging. It is comforting. The kind of embodiment is wonderful in the true sense of wonder or awe. For June, the Teze Tea invited me to choose the songs for the service held the week before the dialogue. The topic was doing hard things. I listened to that service in the morning before going to the penitentiary. It fortified and sustained me through the dialogue afterward, too. So what did I get out of my conversation with Jay? I got accountability. I got to be heard, to share what I wanted to say, to ask the questions I wanted to ask. I could put my voice to all of my turbulent and complex emotions of those 10+ years. I got the elusive closure and sense of safety that so many seek. I got personal power. I got to live my values. I got to sit across the table from another human being and acknowledge both of our suffering. I got freedom. I got to lead with love at the center. Now I am joyful because this process, a process of truth, of equity, of the justice I wanted, was truly transformative. Our prison system is not transformative or restorative for anyone involved. When folks talk about abolition, they tend to ask what abolition would mean for those who have committed crimes. We rarely talk about it from a survivor's perspective in a positive way. But the process and foundation for restorative change is community. It is relationship. It is humane. Abolition is about making justice that comes from love foundational.
And now I invite you to rise and body your spirit as we sing our closing hymn, not our final closing hymn, next to last. Lean on Me, 1021. Thank you, Lucy, for so lovingly and honestly sharing your story today. In one of my meetings with Lucy, I asked her what she hoped would come from telling others not only the story of her loss, but that of the healing power of restorative justice and her victim-offender dialogue with Jay. She said she hoped it would invite reflection on our current prison system, reflection on our shared humanity with those incarcerated, and reflection on forgiveness. If you are feeling called to such reflection and action, there are a few ways you can get involved now. Number one, you can become a pen pal with someone who is incarcerated. As Lucy has shared here before, there are currently almost 2,000 incarcerated Unitarian Universalists who call our tradition their spiritual home. The Worthy Now Prison Network can connect you as a pen pal with an incarcerated UU, or additionally, there is Unchain Whatcom. It's a pen pal program that operates right here in Whatcom County, where you can be paired as a pen pal with someone incarcerated inside the Whatcom County Jail. Number two, you can join an upcoming Buff book club on the book Defund Fear. This was a UUA common read several years ago, and it offers a new blueprint for public safety that holds people accountable while still holding them in community. If you are interested in participating in one of these book clubs, there is a paper sign-up sheet out in the narthex on a little table with the book, which belongs to David Curley. Please don't take it. Or you can wait for an electronic sign-up that will come out in an upcoming Buff News email. And then finally, the UU Church of the Larger Fellowship is offering monthly conversations around this CSAI that we've talked about today on abolition. The next one is on January 20th. It will be an intro to restorative justice practices, and will cover the basic tenets of restorative justice if you want to know more about this model. And now, Beth Byers and a whole host of Buffsters who have given of their time to prepare a final special piece of music. This comes from our new UU Sing Out Love hymnal, which we're trying out. So thank you all so much.
Hi, I'm Beth Byers. We'll be singing the verses to this song since you don't have any music in front of you. And this is going to be the way, because this new hymnal is online only. And which is great because they add songs to it all the time. So we're going to sing the verses, and then we invite you, when you get the hang of it, to join us on the chorus. The words for the chorus are up on the screen.
Agape source, prophetic light to hold our song. The trumpet's call to be compassion guides our way. Our sunshine in the streets, sing justice, sing our spirits free. We love, we are shining the soul's revealing verse and love's unending stream. The cosmic symphony proclaims Sophia's key. Against all prejudice we rise to make all free. We are sunshine in the streets, singing justice, we are spirits down to thee. Being love, we are molten praise alive, shining freedom, we are open heart and life. salvation leads us to rise up. We give our one life to the greatest truth we see. We are sunshine in the streets. Sing justice, we are spirits of free. Being love, we are golden rays of light. Shining freedom, we are open heart and mind. Being love, we are sunshine in the streets. Singing justice, we are open and free. Being love, we are golden rays of light. Shining freedom, we are open heart and mind. Being love.
I offer you the UU benediction I shared to begin my conversation with Jay, The Richness of Our Differences by Julianne Lepp. We seek our place in the world and the answers to our heart's deep questions. As we seek, may our hearts be open to unexpected answers. May we be reminded that all beings are whole, sacred, and worthy. Let our hearts be welcoming of multiple truths, not holding fast or hard to close-mindedness or judgmental thinking. What can we learn from the richness of our differences? May the heart of compassion help us recognize the sacred in each other and bridge differences in these challenging times. May each of us be held in relationship, accountability, and the power of beloved community. Blessed be.
And now let's sing our closing song, Circle Round for Freedom.